Marcus Danton stared blankly at the holographic display in his cramped office at the Temporal Integrity Council's, TIC, main headquarters. It was another monotonous day in the year 2154, and his role as a time validation officer felt more like a punishment than a profession. The flickering lights of the hologram cast a pale blue glow on his tired face as he sifted through the endless stream of time travel applications. Another day, another timeline, he muttered to himself, the sarcasm dripping from his words. His cubicle, nestled in the labyrinthine corridors of the TIC building, was adorned with sarcastic posters like, "Time Travel, because the future needs a makeover," and "Temporal Bureaucracy, changing history, one form at a time." Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. Time travel had once been the pinnacle of human achievement, a marvel that promised endless possibilities. But now, it was a controlled, commercialized service reserved for the elite. The TIC ensured that only the wealthiest individuals and corporations could afford to meddle with the past, turning history into a playground for the privileged few. He glanced at the clock on his desk. Another 3 hours until his lunch break. Not that he cared much for lunch anymore. His life had become a series of monotonous tasks, verifying whether each time travel expedition adhered to the strict, historical integrity laws set by the TIC. These laws were designed to prevent even the slightest alteration of the timeline that could have unforeseen consequences. "Hey, Marcus," called a voice from the neighboring cubicle. It was Linda, his colleague, always the first to greet the day with an overly enthusiastic smile. "Hey, Linda," he replied, forcing a smile. She was one of the few bright spots in his dreary work environment, always ready with a joke or a funny story to lighten the mood. Linda leaned over the partition, her holographic assistant floating beside her. "Guess what? Another group of teenagers tried to go back to 1985 to start their own arcade. Can you believe it? Just the last week, it was the Titanic." Marcus couldn't help but chuckle. "Yeah, I saw that one. Someone thought saving the Titanic would be a heroic move. Instead, they caused a minor disruption in the space-time continuum." Linda laughed, the sound echoing softly in the cubicle maze. "Well, at least they weren't trying to become pastry chefs for Napoleon, right?" "Touché," Marcus admitted, shaking his head. These minor infractions were the bread and butter of his job, keeping him entertained amidst the tedium, but today was different. As he reached for the next application in the queue, a glitch flickered across his screen. The application form seemed to glitch and blur before stabilizing, revealing his own details. "What the?" Marcus exclaimed, leaning closer to inspect the anomaly. His own name, along with a detailed itinerary of a time travel mission he hadn't applied for, appeared on the screen. Puzzled, he double-checked the system logs. There was no record of him submitting such a request. Before he could process the discrepancy, his surroundings began to distort. Colors swirled, sounds warped, and a sensation of vertigo overtook him. The cubicle walls melted away, replaced by a vast expanse of shifting timelines and nebulous structures. When the disorientation subsided, Marcus found himself standing in a surreal courtroom, suspended in the very fabric of spacetime. The room was a bizarre amalgamation of past, present, and future elements. Victorian-era furnishings coexisted with sleek, futuristic technology. The air was thick with an otherworldly hum, and time seemed to ripple around him. Before him stood the Time Tribunal, an assembly of abstract beings whose forms shifted and morphed, embodying the very essence of time. At the center was a figure he recognized instantly. It was his future self, older, wearier, and emanating an aura of authority. Marcus Danton, the tribunal intoned in unison, their voices echoing without a source. "You stand accused of unauthorized alterations to the timeline." "What is this?" Marcus demanded, his voice trembling. "Some kind of joke?" The tribunal remained impassive. "This is the Time Judgment Court. You are here to answer for your actions that have affected the course of history." "Actions? I haven't done anything." Marcus protested, his mind racing to comprehend the situation. He had never even considered using the time travel services himself, let alone altering history. A holographic display materialized before him, projecting evidence of his supposed transgressions. Scenes from various points in history played out, each one more bizarre than the last. In one, Marcus was seen intervening in a minor event in 2024, preventing a car accident that would have claimed the life of Ethan Klein. In another, he was portrayed as the catalyst for a series of unintended consequences that led to catastrophic changes in the future. You see, Marcus, his future self, began, by preventing Ethan Klein's death. You inadvertently caused a domino effect that altered the course of medical technology. Without his contributions, a vaccine for the future pandemic was never developed, resulting in millions of deaths. Marcus stared in disbelief. That's absurd. Ethan Klein was just an ordinary guy. I barely knew him. The tribunal's holographic displays zoomed in on Ethan, highlighting his future achievements. Seemingly insignificant actions can have profound impacts on the timeline. Your intervention, no matter how small, has jeopardized the very fabric of reality. Marcus felt a sinking sensation in his stomach. He had always viewed his job as a low-level bureaucrat, enforcing rules that often felt petty. But this was something entirely different. There must be a mistake. I didn't even authorize any time travel. I'm a time validation officer, not a traveler. The tribunal's attention shifted to him, their abstract forms pulsating with an eerie light. Regardless of intent, the effects of your actions cannot be ignored. The Temporal Integrity Council maintains order by ensuring the stability of the timeline. Your unauthorized intervention disrupts this balance. Temporal Integrity Council? Marcus echoed, suddenly aware of the irony. Here he was, accused by the very institution he served. Are you saying the TIC is holding me accountable? The tribunal remained silent, the weight of their judgment pressing down on him. You will be detained in the prison of time until your actions can be reviewed and your fate decided. With that, the courtroom dissolved around him, and Marcus found himself in a different realm entirely. The prison of time was a disorienting place, a labyrinthine expanse where moments from all eras collided in a chaotic dance. He saw fragments of different timelines, dinosaurs roaming alongside futuristic skyscrapers, ancient warriors conversing with modern-day scientists. As he wandered through the prison, Marcus encountered other time travelers who had fallen victim to the time judgment court. Each prisoner had a unique story of how their seemingly trivial actions had spiraled into uncontrollable changes. One man had tried to prevent a minor accident in 1850, inadvertently causing an entire branch of technology to develop differently. Another had gone back to the 1980s to retrieve a rare comic book, only to alter the course of pop culture in unforeseen ways. The more Marcus listened, the more he realized the fragility of the timeline and the absolute authority the TIC wielded over it. But amidst the shared grievances, whispers of corruption and manipulation began to surface. Some travelers claimed they were targeted not for their actual transgressions, but because they had uncovered hidden truths about the TIC's operations. Determined to uncover the truth, Marcus began to investigate his own case. He pored over holographic records and listened to the fragmented conversations of his fellow prisoners. It became increasingly clear that the TIC's time judgment was not merely about maintaining historical integrity, it was about controlling time itself for their own gain. One night, under the flickering light of a temporal stalactite, Marcus stumbled upon a hidden archive. It contained records that hinted at the TIC's deeper agenda, rewriting history to ensure the dominance of certain powerful figures, manipulating pivotal events to secure their future control. As the pieces fell into place, Marcus realized that his trial was not an isolated incident. The TIC had been orchestrating these judgments to suppress any threats to their authority. The tribunal, far from being impartial overseers, were enforcers ensuring that the TIC's narrative remained unchallenged. Fueled by this revelation, Marcus knew he had to act. If the TIC was manipulating the timeline to maintain their power, exposing their corruption was the only way to restore balance. But doing so meant risking not only his own existence but the very fabric of reality, with newfound determination, Marcus began devising a plan to gather evidence and rally the other prisoners. They needed to present a united front against the tribunal, to show that the TIC's control was unjust and that the timeline deserved the chance to evolve naturally. As days turned into what felt like eons in the prison of time, Marcus and his allies worked tirelessly. They navigated the shifting corridors, avoided the watchful eyes of the tribunal, and meticulously collected proof of the TIC's manipulations. Each discovery was a step closer to unveiling the truth, but also a step deeper into the tangled web of time. One evening, as Marcus reviewed his findings, a realization struck him: to defeat the TIC, they needed to exploit the very system that kept them in check. By understanding the mechanics of the time judgment court, they could manipulate the tribunal's perceptions and turn the system against itself. The plan was risky, but the alternative was unthinkable. If they could hack into the tribunal's temporal algorithms, they might be able to disrupt the TIC's control and expose their corruption to all of time. Gathering his courage, Marcus approached the core chamber of the prison of time, where the tribunal conducted their evaluations. The air was thick with temporal energy, and the very essence of time seemed to pulsate with power. He took a deep breath, knowing that this was the moment that would define not just his fate, but the fate of the entire timeline. As he stepped into the chamber, the tribunal's attention immediately focused on him. His future self stood there, a stern expression masking the turmoil within. "Marcus Danton," the tribunal addressed him once more. "Your actions have been deemed a threat to the temporal order. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Marcus met his future self's gaze, determination burning in his eyes. "Yes, I do. This isn't about a single mistake or a minor alteration. It's about a system that's corrupted the very essence of time for its own gain. The TIC isn't maintaining historical integrity, it's controlling time to preserve their power." The tribunal's form shimmered, reacting to his challenge. "Accusations against the Temporal Integrity Council are themselves a breach of protocol. You are treading dangerous grounds, Marcus." But Marcus stood firm. "I've seen the evidence. The hidden archives, the manipulated timelines, it's all here. You're not neutral overseers, you're the architects of this corruption. And I won't let you continue to manipulate history for your benefit." A tense silence filled the chamber. The tribunal seemed to waver, their forms flickering as if caught in a temporal storm. Marcus seized the moment, launching into his carefully prepared plan. "Listen to me," he implored. "I have proof of your manipulations. Let me present it to the timeline. Allow the truth to be known, and let history proceed naturally. Without your interference, the future can be what it was meant to be." The tribunal's response was a cascade of shifting images and incomprehensible sounds, as if time itself was processing his words. Marcus felt the very ground beneath him ripple with temporal energy. "For your defiance," the tribunal declared, "you will face the consequences." But before they could act, Marcus initiated the disruption. Using his knowledge of temporal mechanics, he exploited a vulnerability in the tribunal's algorithms, causing their forms to destabilize. Time rippled around them, creating fractures in the very fabric of the courtroom. In the chaos, Marcus rushed to the holographic display, ensuring that his evidence was broadcasted across all timelines. The hidden archives, the manipulated events, all were laid bare for every traveler and every observer to see. As the tribunal struggled to regain control, the prison of time began to crumble. The prisoners, inspired by Marcus's courage, joined in the effort to dismantle the TIC's control. Time itself seemed to rebel against the corruption, fractures opening up as timelines began to correct themselves. With a final surge of energy, Marcus and his allies succeeded in exposing the TIC's manipulations. The tribunal's authority shattered, and the prison of time dissolved into a cascade of temporal fragments, freeing the imprisoned travelers. Marcus felt a rush of relief and triumph, but also a profound sense of loss. The timeline was no longer the same, and the future remained uncertain. He had succeeded in exposing the truth, but at what cost? As the remnants of the prison of time faded, Marcus found himself standing alone in a vast expanse of shifting timelines. The echoes of his actions resonated through history, signaling the beginning of a new era, one where time was free from the shackles of the TIC's control. But amidst the newfound freedom, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was far from over. The timeline had been altered irreversibly, and the consequences of his actions were yet to be fully realized. As he gazed into the horizon, where past, present, and future converged, Marcus understood that his journey was just beginning. The judgment of time had been overturned, but the true test lay ahead, navigating a world where time was both a gift and a responsibility, and where the shadows of manipulation still lingered. Marcus felt the remnants of the prison of time dissolve around him, the echoes of fractured timelines fading into a vast expanse of shifting realities. The horizon stretched infinitely, where past, present, and future melded into a kaleidoscope of possibilities. The air was thick with the energy of countless moments coexisting, each one a testament to the fragility and resilience of time itself. He took a tentative step forward, feeling the ground beneath him ripple with temporal vibrations. Every movement seemed to alter the landscape around him, as if his very presence was a catalyst for change. The weight of his actions pressed heavily on his shoulders. He had succeeded in dismantling the Temporal Integrity Council's oppressive grip, but the price of that victory was unclear. As Marcus ventured deeper into this new realm, he began to perceive the subtle shifts in the timeline. Familiar landmarks from different eras appeared and vanished in the blink of an eye. The bustling streets of 2154 intertwined with the quiet serenity of ancient civilizations, and futuristic skyscrapers stood alongside medieval castles. It was a disorienting blend, a visual representation of the timeline now free from the TIC's control. In this fluid environment, Marcus encountered others who had been liberated from the prison of time. They moved with purpose, their expressions a mix of hope and uncertainty. Among them was Elena Ramirez, a brilliant historian who had been wrongfully imprisoned for altering a seemingly minor event in the Renaissance period. Her knowledge of history made her an invaluable ally in navigating the complexities of the new timeline. Marcus, Elena greeted him, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Welcome to the aftermath of our actions. It's going to take time to rebuild, but we have a chance to create a more authentic and dynamic timeline." Marcus nodded, feeling a sense of camaraderie with her and the others. "I just hope we're making the right decisions. Without the TIC to guide us, there's no clear path forward." Elena smiled reassuringly. "We have each other, and we can learn from our mistakes. The timeline is resilient, and so are we." As they walked together, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From a disillusioned office worker to a pivotal figure in overthrowing a corrupt system, his transformation had been profound. The realization that he was part of a larger plan, orchestrated by his own future self, weighed on him. It was a reminder of the intricate web of causality that governed time. Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden appearance of a holographic projection. A figure materialized before them, the same impassive being that had once presided over the time tribunal. However, this time, there was a noticeable shift in its demeanor. Marcus Danton, Elena Ramirez, and fellow liberated travelers, the projection began, its voice carrying a tone of urgency. "The dismantling of the Temporal Integrity Council has caused significant disruptions across multiple timelines. While the removal of the TIC was necessary to restore temporal integrity, it has also unleashed unforeseen consequences that require immediate attention." Marcus exchanged a concerned glance with Elena. "What kind of consequences?" he asked. The projection flickered, displaying images of chaotic events unfolding in various eras. "Without the oversight of the TIC, uncontrolled alterations have led to paradoxes and temporal anomalies. Certain pivotal moments are at risk of collapsing, potentially unraveling entire timelines. It is imperative that we establish a new framework to guide time travelers and maintain the balance of history." Elena frowned, her mind racing to process the information. So, the TIC was preventing these anomalies all along, even as it was manipulating time for its own gain? "Yes, the projection confirmed. The TIC's methods were flawed, balancing control with corruption. To ensure the stability of the timeline, we must implement a decentralized system that empowers responsible time travelers while preventing misuse of temporal manipulation. Marcus felt a surge of determination. What can we do to help? The projection paused, allowing the gravity of the situation to settle. You, Marcus, and your allies, have already demonstrated the capacity to challenge and change the existing system. Your next step is to collaborate with other liberated travelers to establish a council that oversees time travel in a transparent and equitable manner. This new council must prioritize the preservation of historical integrity while fostering the positive potential of temporal exploration. As the hologram faded, Marcus and Elena were left with a sense of purpose. The battle against the TIC was only the beginning. They now faced the daunting task of rebuilding the framework that governed time, ensuring that history remained untainted by corruption and personal agendas. Over the following weeks, Marcus immersed himself in the task of organizing the newly liberated time travelers. Together with Elena and others, they held meetings in shifting environments, adapting to the fluid nature of their surroundings. They established a set of ethical guidelines for time travel, emphasizing responsibility, accountability, and the importance of preserving the natural course of history. One of the first challenges they encountered was dealing with rogue time travelers who resisted the new order. These individuals had become accustomed to the freedom provided by the absence of the TIC's strict regulations and were reluctant to adhere to the new guidelines. Marcus and Elena knew that fostering cooperation was essential, so they approached these rebels with empathy and understanding, seeking to integrate them into the new council rather than alienate them. During one such meeting, Marcus found himself face-to-face with Derek Langford, a charismatic but stubborn time traveler who had a history of causing significant alterations for personal gain. Derek's initial resistance was palpable, but Marcus's genuine desire to create a fair and balanced system resonated with him. "Look, Marcus," Derek began, his tone softening, "I get why you're doing this. The TIC was a mess, but so is this new setup. People are going to mess up, no matter what we do." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "I understand, Derek. But that's why we need a system that encourages responsibility and accountability. We can't rely on a single authority to control everything. We need collective oversight." Derek considered this for a moment before sighing. "All right, I'll give it a shot. But if things start falling apart again, don't say I didn't warn you." With Derek's support, the council gained credibility among the more rebellious travelers. They began to implement training programs, educating new time travelers on the importance of maintaining historical integrity and the potential consequences of reckless alterations. These programs emphasized the interconnectedness of events and the delicate balance required to preserve the timeline. As the council's influence grew, Marcus and Elena spearheaded initiatives to repair the damage caused by the TIC's manipulations. They identified critical points in history that had been destabilized and worked tirelessly to restore balance. This involved meticulous research, collaboration with historians, and, in some cases, strategic interventions to correct anomalies. One of their most significant projects was the restoration of Ethan Klein's intended impact on medical technology. Using detailed records and simulations, Marcus coordinated efforts to ensure that Klein's contributions were re-established without causing further disruptions. It was a delicate process, requiring precise timing and coordination, but the council's collective expertise made it possible. As they worked to mend the timeline, Marcus couldn't help but reflect on the lessons learned from his ordeal. The experience had taught him the importance of humility, collaboration, and the recognition that even the smallest actions could have far-reaching effects. He had grown from a disillusioned bureaucrat into a leader committed to safeguarding the integrity of time. Despite their progress, challenges remained. The new council had to navigate the complexities of governing a system that was inherently unpredictable. They faced resistance from factions with differing philosophies on time travel, and there were moments when the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. However, the shared commitment to creating a better future kept them united. One evening, as Marcus and Elena reviewed the latest updates from their restoration projects, a familiar sensation washed over him. Time seemed to warp around them, and the environment shimmered with temporal energy. They exchanged worried glances, sensing that something was amiss. "What's happening?" Elena asked, her eyes scanning the fluctuating surroundings. Before Marcus could respond, a portal opened, and a figure stepped through. It was his future self, the one who had initially faced the tribunal. This version of Marcus looked different, older, more weary, but with a determined spark in his eyes. "Marcus," the older man began, his voice carrying the weight of countless experiences, "there's something you need to know." Marcus felt a surge of emotions, surprise, confusion, and a deep sense of urgency. "What is it? What's going on?" The future Marcus took a deep breath. "The work we've done so far is just the beginning. The dismantling of the TIC has unleashed not only anomalies but also hidden threats that seek to exploit the chaos. There are forces beyond our understanding that aim to manipulate time for their own purposes, and we must be prepared to confront them." Elena stepped forward, concern etched on her face. "What kind of threats are we talking about?" The future Marcus hesitated before continuing. "Entities that exist outside the conventional flow of time, beings who can manipulate temporal energies on a scale that we can barely comprehend. They see the timeline as a canvas for their designs, indifferent to the consequences of their actions. If left unchecked, they could unravel the very fabric of reality." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "How do we stop them?" The future Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "We need to strengthen the council, expand our resources, and develop new technologies to detect and counteract these threats. It's going to require sacrifices and unwavering dedication, but it's the only way to ensure the survival of our timeline." Elena nodded resolutely. "We're in this together. Whatever it takes, we'll find a way." As the future Marcus faded back into his portal, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. The council had achieved a significant victory by overthrowing the TIC, but the battle for the integrity of time was far from over. The revelation of these hidden threats underscored the complexity of their mission and the ever-present dangers that lurked within the temporal currents. In the weeks that followed, the council intensified their efforts to fortify the timeline against external manipulations. They collaborated with scientists, engineers, and historians to develop advanced temporal monitoring systems capable of detecting anomalies before they could escalate. These systems utilized predictive algorithms and real-time data analysis to anticipate potential disruptions, allowing the council to respond swiftly and effectively. Marcus spearheaded the development of a new division within the council dedicated to combating these elusive threats. This team, known as the Temporal Defense Unit, TDU, was composed of the most skilled and resourceful time travelers. Their mission was to identify, neutralize, and prevent entities from exploiting temporal vulnerabilities. One of the first missions of the TDU was to investigate a series of unexplained distortions that had been detected in the early 21st century. These distortions appeared to be the result of deliberate manipulations, but their origin was unknown. Marcus, Elena, and a select team of TDU members traveled back to the year 2024, the same year where Marcus had inadvertently altered the timeline by saving Ethan Klein. Upon their arrival, they found themselves in a city that bore a striking resemblance to the one Marcus had remembered, but with subtle differences that hinted at the previous distortions. They began their investigation by retracing Marcus's original actions, hoping to identify any residual effects that might have attracted the attention of the temporal entities. As they delved deeper into the events of that year, they discovered that Marcus's intervention had not only prevented Ethan Klein's death but had also inadvertently opened a rift in the timeline. This rift had allowed the entities to establish a foothold, setting the stage for their future manipulations. The team worked meticulously to close the rift, using advanced temporal technologies and strategic interventions to minimize further disruptions. It was a delicate operation, requiring precise coordination and an acute understanding of the temporal dynamics at play. Hours turned into days as they navigated the complexities of the timeline, but their efforts eventually paid off. The rift was sealed, and the distortions began to subside. However, the mission revealed a troubling truth: the entities were not isolated incidents. Similar rifts and distortions were occurring across various points in history, indicating a coordinated effort to destabilize the timeline. Marcus realized that the Council's task was far more extensive than initially anticipated. Determined to uncover the source of these threats, Marcus proposed an ambitious plan: to create a temporal network that would allow for real-time communication and coordination among all members of the Council, regardless of their position in the timeline. This network would enable the TDU to respond more efficiently to emerging threats and facilitate the sharing of vital information. The proposal was met with enthusiasm, and the Council quickly mobilized resources to develop the network. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, designing a system that could bridge the gaps between different eras and provide seamless connectivity. The project, dubbed ChronoLink, was a monumental undertaking that required the combined expertise of the entire Council. As ChronoLink neared completion, the Council faced increasing pressure from both internal and external forces. Rogue travelers sought to exploit the new system for personal gain, while external entities continued to push against the Council's efforts to maintain order. Marcus found himself at the forefront of these challenges, balancing the need for progress with the imperative to safeguard the timeline. One evening, as Marcus reviewed the latest developments on ChronoLink, he received an urgent message from Derek Langford. Derek had been instrumental in securing the Council's cooperation, and his insights were invaluable. "Marcus," Derek began, "we've got a situation. Our sensors have detected a significant temporal anomaly in the late 19th century. It appears to be a large-scale manipulation, possibly orchestrated by the entities we've been tracking." Marcus's heart raced. "I'm on my way. Gather the team and prepare for immediate deployment." Within hours, Marcus, Elena, Derek, and several TDU members were aboard a temporal transport vessel, en route to the affected era. The anomaly they were about to confront was unprecedented in both scale and complexity, posing a direct threat to the stability of the timeline. Upon arrival, they found themselves in a bustling cityscape of the late 1800s, a period marked by rapid industrialization and technological advancement. However, the city bore signs of unnatural disruptions. Buildings flickered between different architectural styles, and people moved in erratic, unpredictable patterns as if caught in a perpetual state of flux. The team quickly set up a temporary base of operations, using advanced equipment to scan the environment for signs of manipulation. Their sensors detected a powerful temporal energy signature emanating from the heart of the city, a location that should have been a center of innovation and progress. As they navigated the chaotic streets, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Shadows seemed to move independently of their surroundings, and whispers echoed through the air, carrying messages that were both cryptic and unsettling. Elena led the way, her expertise in historical contexts guiding them toward the source of the anomaly. They arrived at a grand laboratory, its design anachronistic yet awe-inspiring, blending Victorian elegance with futuristic technology. The building pulsed with temporal energy, its walls shimmering with the essence of manipulated time. Inside, they discovered a hidden chamber where the entities were actively engaged in altering key events of the era. These beings, barely perceptible to the naked eye, moved with purpose, their actions creating ripples that threatened to destabilize the entire timeline. The team sprang into action, deploying their temporal countermeasures to disrupt the entity's manipulations. Marcus and Derek focused on neutralizing the immediate threats, while Elena and the other TDU members worked to restore the natural flow of time in the area. The confrontation was intense, with the entities resisting their efforts to maintain control over the timeline. Time itself seemed to bend and twist around them, creating a surreal battleground where past and future collided in a chaotic dance. Marcus felt the strain of the temporal energies, pushing his mind and body to their limits as he fought to preserve the integrity of history. Amidst the turmoil, Marcus caught sight of his future self, who had arrived to lend support. The older Marcus's presence was a stabilizing force, his actions coordinated with precision and purpose. Together, they combined their strengths, channeling their collective knowledge and experience to counteract the entity's influence. As the battle reached its climax, Marcus realized that brute force alone would not suffice. Drawing upon his understanding of temporal mechanics, he devised a strategy to outmaneuver the entities by leveraging the very distortions they had created. By anticipating their movements and exploiting the inconsistencies in their manipulations, Marcus and his team managed to weaken the entity's hold on the timeline. With a final, coordinated effort, they succeeded in neutralizing the entities, severing their connection to the temporal energies that fueled their manipulations. The laboratory's chaotic energy began to stabilize, and the timeline gradually returned to its intended course. The team watched as the cityscape solidified, the flickering buildings and erratic movements ceasing to exist. Exhausted but triumphant, Marcus and his allies surveyed the restored environment. The battle had taken its toll, but their perseverance had ensured the preservation of history. As they prepared to leave, Marcus couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment mixed with the weight of the responsibilities that still lay ahead. Back at the Council's headquarters, Chronolink was fully operational, providing real-time communication and coordination across different eras. The success of the mission in the late 19th century had demonstrated the Council's ability to respond effectively to emerging threats, reinforcing their commitment to maintaining the stability of the timeline. However, Marcus knew that the fight was far from over. The entities they had encountered were merely a fraction of the challenges they would face. The temporal landscape was vast and unpredictable, and new threats would inevitably arise as long as time itself continued to unfold. One morning, as the Council gathered for a strategic meeting, Marcus addressed the assembled members with a sense of resolve. "We've made significant progress in establishing a framework for responsible time travel and defending the timeline against external threats. But we must remain vigilant. The integrity of history depends on our continued efforts to balance exploration with preservation." Elena nodded in agreement. "We need to foster a culture of accountability and collaboration among all time travelers. By working together and sharing our knowledge, we can better anticipate and address the challenges that come our way." Derek added, "And we need to stay ahead of those who would exploit time for their own gain. The entities we faced are just the beginning. We must develop new technologies and strategies to detect and counteract any future manipulations." The Council members listened attentively, their expressions reflecting a shared commitment to the cause. Marcus felt a surge of hope as he looked around the room, seeing the determination in each person's eyes. They were no longer bound by the limitations of the TIC's oppressive regime. They were a united front dedicated to safeguarding the timeline. As the meeting concluded, Marcus took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought him here. From the confines of his mundane job to the liberation of the prison of time, and now to the establishment of a new order, his path had been one of transformation and growth. He had discovered strengths he never knew he possessed and forged bonds with those who shared his vision for a better future. In the weeks that followed, the Council's efforts bore fruit. Chronolink facilitated seamless communication and coordination, allowing the TDU to respond swiftly to emerging threats. Training programs for new time travelers emphasized the importance of ethical conduct and the preservation of historical integrity, fostering a sense of responsibility among all members. One notable success was the restoration of a critical event in the early 21st century that had been compromised by a rogue traveler seeking personal gain. The Council's intervention ensured that the event unfolded as intended, preventing a chain reaction of negative consequences that could have altered the course of history. Despite these victories, Marcus remained acutely aware of the ongoing challenges. The temporal landscape was ever-changing, and the Council had to adapt continuously to address new threats and unforeseen circumstances. He found solace in the support of his allies, knowing that together they could navigate the complexities of time and ensure its preservation. One evening, as Marcus stood on the rooftop of the Council's headquarters, gazing out at the shifting horizon, Elena joined him. The cityscape before them was a tapestry of different eras, each one coexisting in a delicate balance. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Elena mused, her eyes reflecting the kaleidoscope of timelines. "A reminder of what we're fighting to protect." Marcus nodded, a sense of peace washing over him. It is. And it's a reminder of the responsibility we carry. Every action we take, every decision we make, has the potential to shape the future in ways we can't always predict. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. But we've come a long way. We've built something meaningful here, something that can withstand the tests of time. Marcus smiled, feeling the truth in her words. You're right. We've built a foundation, and as long as we stay true to our principles, we can continue to protect the integrity of the timeline. As they stood together, the shifting horizon a testament to their efforts, Marcus felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The journey had been arduous, filled with challenges and sacrifices, but it had also been a journey of discovery and growth. He had found purpose in his role as a guardian of time, and he was determined to see it through, no matter the obstacles that lay ahead. The council's work was far from over, but with each passing day, they grew stronger and more resilient. They had transformed from a group of liberated prisoners into a cohesive and effective organization, dedicated to ensuring that time remained a force for good rather than a tool for manipulation. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the ever-shifting landscape, Marcus turned to Elena with a sense of optimism. What's next for us? Elena's eyes sparkled with determination. We continue to monitor the timelines, address any anomalies, and support each other in maintaining the balance of history. There's always more work to be done, but I believe we're up to the task. Marcus nodded, feeling ready for whatever the future held. Absolutely. Together, we can ensure that time remains a natural and untainted force, shaping the world in ways that honor our past and inspire our future. With that, they descended from the rooftop, joining their fellow council members in their mission to protect the integrity of time. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Marcus felt a deep sense of confidence in the path they had chosen. They were no longer bound by the constraints of the past. They were architects of a future where time was respected, preserved, and allowed to unfold in its true, unmanipulated form. As the council moved forward, addressing new challenges and forging stronger connections across the temporal landscape, Marcus realized that his role had evolved beyond his initial expectations. He was no longer just a time validation officer or a prisoner of time. He was a guardian, a leader, and a beacon of hope for those who believed in the sanctity of history. The legacy of their actions would resonate through the ages, ensuring that the lessons learned from the rise and fall of the Temporal Integrity Council would never be forgotten. The Council's commitment to ethical time travel and the preservation of historical integrity would serve as a foundation for future generations, guiding them in their interactions with the past and the future. In the end, Marcus understood that the true essence of their mission was not just about preventing the manipulation of time, but about fostering a deeper connection to history and a greater appreciation for the intricate web of events that shaped the world. It was a responsibility that required vigilance, wisdom, and an unwavering dedication to the principles they had established. As he looked out at the horizon once more, Marcus felt a sense of peace and purpose. The timeline was a living, breathing entity, and he, along with his allies, were its stewards. Together, they would navigate the complexities of time, ensuring that its flow remained untainted and that history remained a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of humanity. The journey was far from over, but Marcus was ready. With each step he took, he embraced the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead, confident in the knowledge that he was part of something greater, a mission to preserve the very essence of time itself. And so, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ever-shifting landscape, Marcus and his allies continued their vigilant watch over the timeline, guardians of history and protectors of the future, ensuring that the judgment of time remained a beacon of integrity and truth for generations to come. End of story.